the left side is done with latex paint, what we've used forever to paint both houses and furniture with. That is what that looks like. It's got a shine. You can kind of see the grain. It's got a pretty good stain resistance to it. That's what we're used to seeing. Chalk paint has kind of a flat or a matte finish to it. It instead of with regular paint, you paint with the grain. With chalk paint, you paint all over the place because you want it to have a soft matte finish, and that painting all over the place seems to do that. So the cost for the chalk paint, now also this is chalk paint, not distressed chalk paint. People do a lot of things with chalk paint, different levels of distressing to make them look aged, or to give it an appearance, you know, that it's had several coats of paint on it. There are many things you can do. This is what a basic chalk paint looks like. A lot of people like to just do the chalk paint with no distressing, and that's what this is. So the cost for chalk paint, if you want to go the high quality original Annie Sloan route, Annie Sloan invented chalk paint, this is what it will cost you. For a quart of paint, we're just doing everything by a quart of paint and wax. The paint is about $35, the wax is about $25, and the sandpaper will cost you $4. So supplies, the paint and the wax and sandpaper to do this table, for example, is $64. With the chalk paint and the wax, they recommend specialty brushes. So you can decide whether you want to use the specialty brushes. There are advantages to buying their brushes. Personally, I would find things that are comparable to them for, 20% of the price. But if you want to go with what they recommend, the cost for the paint and the supplies, sandpaper and brushes, will cost you $109 to do this table. And of course you would have some wax left over and you would still have your paint brushes. So that's $109 for chalk paint. If you want to go old school, it will cost you about $13 for a quart of mid-grade latex semi-gloss paint. You could also go with a satin finish if you wanted to, which is not quite as much shine, but it still has stain resistance to it. If you want less shine, go with that. So for the paint and the sandpaper, for latex paint, $17. If you need to buy a brush, it'll cost you another $10. So you're looking at about $27 for the old school paint route. So far as the work that it takes to do it, the old school, you have to sand the finish down. It doesn't mean you have to sand it down to wood, but you have to sand it down enough to get all of the shine off of it. If you have an electric sander, it's pretty easy to do. I would recommend, they're only like $40 for an orbital sander, like probably a 5-inch disc orbital sander. I just pay less than $40 for one at a big box store like at Lowe's. So 2 coats of paint, sand down the furniture first, and you're done. If you want to do the chalk paint, you will not have to sand, which is the big advantage to chalk paint. You don't have to sand it down. You will probably have to paint 2 coats of chalk paint, and probably sand lightly after the coats of chalk paint. You don't have to, but I put that in there because you just usually have to sand. And then you apply 2 coats of wax. So labor-wise to do this table, if you have an electric sander, to me the labor is the same. If you are sanding by hand, you will have more labor going the old school latex paint. So that's how it breaks down. If you really like the chalk finish, it's a pretty expensive thing to get into, but it's definitely beautiful furniture. And old school, there's a lot of good things about old school too. So I'm going to put, after this, there are cheaper ways to do chalk paint, so I will put something in after this about how to save drastically on chalk paint to probably get the chalk paint done for 30 or 40% less than the price here. So if you're still looking at chalk paint, hang around for just a second and I will explain to you how to get chalk paint done at a much better price. The distressed chalk paint on the white is pretty much the reason a lot of people use chalk paint. They want to distress their furniture to make it look like it's old, weathered, been around, sweetly aged furniture. And that's just some basic distressing, which was done with sandpaper around the edges. But that is the look. The flat look of the chalk paint along with that is the reason people go with the chalk paint. Next to the semi-gloss, I mean, that's a pretty big, you know, two entirely different styles of furniture. Old school on the left, and well, I guess chalk paint look is technically old school, but those are the differences right there, what you're going to get so far as look. There are a lot of techniques for adding colors and how distressed things are, how thick the paint is, all kinds of different techniques, but this is just a basic difference between latex paint and chalk paint. Another option for chalk paint is to go with what is on the shelves at a hardware store or a store like Home Depot and Lowe's. Both of them have brands of chalk paint. I believe one of them carries Rust-Oleum and one of them carries Valspar. The price is lower than if you order Annie Sloan's, and you will also have to pay shipping for Annie Sloan. So if you want to go check out what they have, you can get everything there for about $81 versus the $109 for Annie Sloan plus shipping. You also have the option to make your own chalk paint. It is very easy to do. It only has 3 ingredients. It has water and plaster of Paris and flat latex paint. There are some other things besides plaster of Paris you can use, but plaster of Paris is what I use. So if you want to make your own chalk paint, it will cost you about $44 for all of your supplies, your paint, your sandpaper, your wax, and your brush. That I use one brush if I have to, a natural bristle brush, and I just wash it very well between the paint and the wax. So you can get away with doing that. DIY chalk paint, about $44 to do this table. And I also have links at the end of this video on how to make your own chalk paint. So check that out if you don't already have a recipe. So this is how it all breaks down on the price to do a table. If you have a larger piece like a dresser, for example, you will probably need 2 quarts of paint. So you would have to add that into your price if you think you have a piece that will be large enough for that. So there you have it. Those are the price comparisons for old school paint and 3 versions of chalk paint, from the high quality original Annie Sloan paint to the takeoff paint from hardware stores to making your own paint. I hope this video was helpful in deciding what you want to do with your project. Please comment and ask questions, and I will be happy to answer them for you.